In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Most Merciful, I bear witness that there is but one God whose proper name is Allah, and I bear witness that Muhammad is his servant and messenger. I greet you, my beloved brothers and sisters, those of you who are tuning into another episode of the Imagination Show. I greet you in the greeting words of peace. We say it in the ancient tongue of Arabic, Assalamu alaikum. Welcome, welcome, welcome to another episode of the Imagination Show with your host, Brother Leo Muhammad, and my co-host,
Sister Claudia Muhammad. Assalamu alaikum, family, and welcome, welcome, welcome. It's an honor and pleasure to have you join us today. We definitely do not take your time for granted, as time is so precious. So we thank you for your time. We pray that you are all safe and well, enjoying the countless blessings from Allah God. It may not seem like we're a blessed people, but we definitely are. We are so blessed. And thank you once again.
Definitely, definitely. Thank you, beloved sister. Yes, here we are, dear family. We have to apologize for last week. Our Zoom crashed out. For some reason, we just could not use the Zoom app last week. But here we are, and we are praying to Almighty God Allah that He will bless us to have a successful show. We thank you for your patience and for bearing with us and for sticking with us. And we pray that, as always, you will make a phone call, tap somebody, tell them, listen, tune in to the Imagination Show that goes out live and direct each and every Thursday at 6:30 p.m. Don't forget also, family, let us know where you are on the planet, where you are tuning in from, so that we can, touch base with you and, just know where you are. I pray that all of you are well and enjoying, as Sister Claudia said, the many blessings of Allah. And as always, we are greatly honored and privileged to have this opportunity to come to you wherever you may be viewing or listening.
That's right. I was a little bit concerned about the Zoom.
What about it?
I hope they could log on.
Okay, well, let's hope so. Let's hope that you are able to get on this evening, dear family. Yeah, so let people know, man. Let them know about the Imagination Show. Let them know what we are doing on this platform, because it is a platform designed to open the mind of the listeners and the viewers, and for us to begin to think outside of that box. And so I say again, welcome to episode 91. We're rushing towards that 100 mark. Welcome to episode 91. And our show this week is entitled Africa Must Be Free in 2023. And this is part 2 that would have taken place last week, but here we are this week. And we may very well continue with this theme for a little while, because what's happening, dear family, on our planet is critically important. It is critically important. We've seen wars in places afar off. We've all been, many of us, well, even I guess for the younger people, they don't even know anything about what took place, 20 plus years ago with Afghanistan, and then Iraq, and then Libya and Syria. I mean, but make no mistake about it, dear family. War is a profoundly grievous thing. And it's not something, even though we've watched the war films and, we listen to these talking heads talking about war like it's basically a walk in the park. The reality of war is such that, all of us should really take it very, very seriously. And we shouldn't really wish it on anybody, because it is truly devastating, where really nobody is spared. No life is so precious that it cannot be lost in the melee, or the fog, as they like to say, the fog of war. Lots of innocent men, women, and children lose their lives in these circumstances. And so We are living in a time of war. And we believe, based on the teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad as taught to us by the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, that this war will escalate, that it will engulf, much of our planet, in the sense that nobody will escape its ramification. No one will be able to just continue in a normal fashion when this thing really gets going. And so it's important that we prepare ourselves.
Yes, I was going to say, Student Minister Ishmael Muhammad was teaching on Sunday about we are at the end of time. This is not at the beginning, not in the middle, but we are at the end of this world.
Absolutely.
And Study Guide 21, what we're currently studying, teaches that we're living in a transitory time, which is a very dangerous time to be in.
It's the most dangerous time.
Is.
Sister Claudia said a transitory time. When you're transferring from one place to another, when you are, I remember years ago, I haven't been on the underground for a long, long time in truth, but I remember there were certain train stations in the UK, underground stations, where there's a gap between the train and the line, and literally you'd have an announcement from the workers for London Underground saying, mind the gap. Mind the gap. I don't know if that happens in other nations, in other countries. I remember being in Washington on the underground and there was no gap at all. It was very, very uniformed and very, very modern. But when you are transferring from the train to the platform, or from the platform to the train, that's dangerous, because if you make a wrong step, you could fall in that gap. And, in terms of traveling, we always pray, don't we? We pray continuously whenever we get in the car, or whenever we leave the house, or whenever we enter coming back home. We always pray, because it's you're transferring from one domain into another. And in transitory periods, it's dangerous. It's one thing when you're kind of settled in a place, but whenever you're moving, you're traveling, which is what this means. We have to be very much aware.
Yes, an old world going and a new one coming in.
Absolutely. And the reality, dear family, is that this old world is not going to go out without a fight.
That's right.
The nature of the old world is that it's become very privileged. It thinks that it's the only reality, and therefore it cannot conceive of not being around, not being in charge, not being dominant. And so anything now that represents a new reality, a new beginning, a new dispensation, presents a threat to the old, and the old feels that it has to fight to the death in order to preserve what it believes is its rightful place. And so this is what we're dealing with this evening, dear family. We are continuing our theme on war, and we want you to, really do your best to follow along with us. I'm going to try and go quite slowly, to be honest with you. I have a few notes that I'm just going to read, and it's just really a fireside kind of chat. I don't want it to be, too eyebrow to, I just want us to just consider certain realities. And so I hope you are all good. And at this time, we will begin. There is a scripture in the book of Matthew, chapter 24, verse 6, that says, "And ye shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that ye be not troubled, for all these things must come to pass before the end, but the end is not yet." Okay, so this is what we are hearing now in terms of the news and I must be completely honest with you. I rarely look at mainstream news anymore. I get most of mine from online or whatever, and I will search and look into different areas for the news. But nonetheless, there are wars and rumors of wars. And dear family, it's really important that, again, we understand that the war between Russia and NATO being fought currently in Ukraine, that it is affecting other parts of the world and influencing movements and alliances between those who are in support of America, because America's got her supporters, she's got her allies, those who are in support of America and desire to see the continuation of American domination, using its military and economic might to crush any and all opposition. So, you know, even though we may recognize that there are those of us who are moving on a particular level, make no mistake about it, America and her allies, they are also making moves in order to shore up, in order to maintain the status quo. And so while there is this other block, and I'm talking about now what you might call our block, you might call the so-called third world, the so-called developing nations, while there is another block of alliances being formed between those countries and peoples who have historically been oppressed, enslaved and colonized, and who yearn to be set free and to emerge into a genuine multipolar world where sovereignty and independence is a guarantee. You see, right now, the Americans and that bloc, they are pushing to maintain this unipolar world where it's basically one power, you know. But what we want is to see that multipolar world where sovereignty and independence and all of these concepts are real, where, you know, as independent nations, we can make our own decisions. And at the moment, that's just not the case. The vast majority of the African continent is in this latter block, this latter group that I'm talking about. And we are right in there with Russia and China, because I know that for some of us, you see, we don't want to hear that. We don't want to believe that these two mighty nations are in the same position, in the same block as us, the Africans, the Blacks, the diasporans in the Western Hemisphere. But that's the reality. BRICS is one of the greatest indicators of the seismic changes that are occurring. This alliance between these nations who are now trying to come up with an alternative currency to the dollar, to the pound, you see, to these currencies which have dominated our planet over the last several decades. The recent Russia-Africa summit and the resolutions and agreements that came out of it has had a tremendous impact on nations and peoples around the world. Okay, that Africa summit is not something that was lightweight. That Africa summit really was almost like a signal to say that Africa has reached a point now of no return. There's changes, you know, back in the day, I think it was a white man who used the term the winds of change. Okay, there was a particular kind of wind blowing that represented change. And right now, in the aftermath of that Russia-Africa summit, again, tremendous change is afoot. Please remember the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan's song, "A white man's heaven is a black man's hell." And the reason I mentioned that, dear family, is because, see, this is the juxtaposition or the dichotomy, the two things that we have to look at here, which we mentioned in the beginning, that in order for us to go where we need to go and achieve what we need to achieve as the so-called developing nations, as a so-called third world, as the so-called, third world people, because this is how they've classified us.
All by design.
Absolutely. In order for us to go where we need to go, they see that. And when I say they, I'm talking about the powers that be who have been in control of the world. They see that as a threat. They see that as somehow undermining them. Remember, white man's heaven,
That's right.
black man's hell. So turn it around. Black man's heaven is a white man's hell. Did you know that we're taught in physics, for instance, that two things cannot occupy the same space at the same time? And that in order for him to have ruled over the last 6,000 years in the manner in which he ruled, that we literally had to go to sleep. We had to sleep. We had to be a people who were subjected by him, but we couldn't rule together. I know the dream, some of us dream of this wonderful time in the future when, everybody's just, I think it was Martin Luther King's speech, that one day little black boys and little white girls will hold hands and live. It's not going to happen, dear family, simply because those whites who are in power, they are so wicked that they have no desire of sharing power with those who they're formerly enslaved or formerly colonized. They have no intention. See, this is the thing. Maybe if the choice was with us, it would be different in that we have no problem sharing the resources of the planet, but he will not do that. And that's fine. But that means that he has to leave. He has to be taken out of power. His systems, which are institutionally racist, all of his institutions are designed to raise him while diminishing us and destroying us. Those systems have to be destroyed. At the Million Man March in October the 16th, 1995, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan said that white supremacy has to die in order for humanity to live. Do you understand? You see, I'm just trying to get us to appreciate that there's really no compromise here. Okay? You cannot, how did Jesus say it? You cannot serve two masters. You have to hate one and love the other one. There's no in between for those of us who love to sit in between. So, dear family, this is where we are today. We are at a crossroads. And the reality is that we have to appreciate that all of this is also codified in Scripture. I want to just remind you of another scripture which you can find in the book of Malachi, chapter 4, verse 5, wherein it says, "Behold, I will send you Elijah the prophet before the coming of the great and the dreadful day of the Lord. And he shall turn the heart of the fathers to the children and the heart of the children to their fathers, unless I come and smite the earth with a curse." See, that beautiful human being that you should be able to see behind me, the most honorable Elijah Muhammad, he comes with a specific mission to turn hearts, to change minds, to cause a transformation to take place whereby we turn back and we're able to look again at our fathers. Some people like to use the term ancestors. Some people understand that when we are talking about ancestors, we're talking about the creator of the heavens and the earth, who is the ultimate ancestor, because he is the one from whom we all emerged. But Elijah's job is to turn our hearts back to him. And in so doing, his heart turns back to us, because you need that conduit, you need that servant who is dedicated to that task, whereby we become re-educated as to the reality of ourselves, our identity, who we really are, and we turn back to our Creator. And I'm saying to all of my African brothers and sisters, I know that for some of us, we see it as purely political or purely economic. Make no mistake about it, the politics and the economics absolutely has a tremendous amount to do with this. But do not forget the spiritual. Do not forget the reality of who we are as a people. Wherever we are found on the planet, we are the people of God. And don't ever make calculations about what's going on in this world and miss out that vital calculus, which is the factor in of Almighty God, Allah, in the equation. I hope that makes sense, dear family, because that's really, really important. And so I wanted to just go back a little bit over some of the history. According to what I was studying, Sudan unofficially became independent in 1956, 1 year before Ghana, because most people believe that it's Ghana that was the first African nation that actually became independent in sub-Saharan Africa in 1957. But I think there is something there about Sudan that was actually 1956. The last African country to gain independence was Namibia. And this one was dominated by the colonial masters, who were German, believe it or not. And that took place on March the 21st, 1990. I want you to appreciate, do you understand that Namibia is literally just a few years old, having only become independent in 1990. That's how recently we have been suffering under bondage by another people. I mean, and this is important for us to appreciate. Okay, South Africa, by the way, only became a so-called democracy after Nelson Mandela was released from prison in 1994. That's even more recent, and became the first legitimate president of that country. Because what we have to again understand is that up to that point, even though they like to make out and pretend that South Africa was some kind of democracy, what kind of a democracy could it be if the majority of the people in the country were denied the vote, and only a small minority of whites and so-called coloreds or whatever may have been allowed to vote? And so it wasn't a democracy, it was a sham. It was, you know, again, one of these autocratic nations that was brutal and tyrannical to the majority of its citizens. And so, dear family, we're going through a little bit of the history in order for us to understand what's currently taking place. Feel free, Sister Claudia, to come in at any time. 14 of the former African countries colonized by France had to sign listen to what they had to sign at the point of their so-called independence. They had to sign something called the Continuation of Colonization Pact. This is what 14 nations who were formerly colonized by France signed in order to gain their independence. From that day, dear family, to this, France has continued to control the social, political, and economic systems of all these African countries. Okay, so on the surface, you know, we're there thinking that you know, when you see people are constantly pointing the finger at Africa, oh, why can't they do this and why can't they do that and why are they so underdeveloped? Well, that's by design. That's because you have these European nations who have been working systematically. This has become institutionalized and systemized to keep these nations in this terrible condition. Go ahead,
I was going to
sister.
say, you know, if Africa was such a third world country, why the fight to go into that country? And you would encourage Black people, yes, you go back to your own country, but they don't. The picture they paint of Africa is some rundown, dusty place, little mud huts that people live in. And then when you visit there, you think, why am I in this country? Because how we're living here, we could be living as kings and queens in Africa. It's so beautiful.
Absolutely.
So clean, so developed.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
Advanced, isn't it? Yeah.
So many parts are like that.
So
But the sad reality is that we don't control the economics. We don't really even control the politics. We kind of play at politics in the sense that we follow this Westminster model or the French model or some other model that's been imposed. And whilst we're trying to live according to somebody else's model, it can't work for us, dear family. There is a region in West and Central Africa called the Sahel, comprising portions of 10 African countries which span the width of the continent. So there's a whole series of countries that literally goes right across the African continent from left to right, starting with Senegal, Mauritania, Mali, Burkina Faso, Algeria, Nigeria, Chad, Sudan, and Eritrea. Okay, this is a Sahel portion in West and Central Africa. Many of these countries have finally begun to wake up to the reality of the blatant and wicked imperialistic covert and overt activities of the former enslavers and colonizers of African peoples and African nations. The African countries, like I said, they, you know, when you see the Western media was trying to make this, make a big thing out of the fact that a particular number of heads of states went to Russia for the Russia-Africa summit recently, and then trying to suggest that the vast majority of African nations didn't attend. But that was disingenuous, and it was actually a lie, because the reality was that every one of these countries, I think there's 54 or 55 African nations on the continent right now, and 49 of those countries were represented at that summit. You understand? So their head of state may not have been there, but representatives from the governments were sent, and there were 49 of those nations that were actually represented at that recent summit. Dear family, you know, the frustration, the anger of African people is just more and more palpable today. As one such person, I can bear witness the way I feel about it. Yeah, I'm angry about what's been going on over these many years, and the feeling of Africans on the continent. I can feel it, man. I can feel it coming from our brothers and sisters there, that they've had enough. And, you know, because the enemy has been so merciless, ruthless, brutal, and relentless in this deliberate exploitation, destruction, and underdevelopment. See, again, I just don't want us to get into this thing where we think that these things have been happening accidentally. These things have been designed to be the way they are, okay? And this has been happening to our people. And that now, you know, we have no choice but to recognize what most other people have known for years, you know, because most people who've been observing Africa, observing the relationship between us and Europe, even other Europeans have been looking, and they've been wondering, well, what's wrong with us as a people? Why are we not rising up and changing this reality? They've known this for years, and no other people, dear family, would have put up with this situation, this condition for literally years. No people would have put up with this for 1 year, much less all of the years that you and I have gone through this process, which is now literally 400 plus years that this state of affairs has been a reality. And, you know, if I'm honest, I find it incredible listening to some of these talking heads on the television who, according to them, they can't understand why the people of Niger would celebrate and applaud the military overthrow of a corrupt and puppet government. They can't understand it. Why are you doing this? You see? And they can't understand why we'd be acting in the interest of ourselves instead of these Western masters. Why would these Africans suddenly decide that, no, they've had enough? Just imagine having all these extremely valuable mineral resources in your soil, yet being referred to as one of the poorest countries in the world. I mean, just think about that. The
lies and the tricks.
Because this is the language that they use about Niger. It's one of the poorest countries in the world. Yet it's got all of this valuable mineral resources in its soil that's been constantly taken out and exploited by these European nations.
Yeah, that trick, isn't it? So that we won't go back to the rich countries that we were brought up, the richness
that we were brought out from.
Yes, we've been stolen.
But and also think about it like this, Sister Claudia, see, because imagine, what's the greatest resource that they ever took out of Africa? It was the people.
That's right.
You see, so imagine, it's not, okay, now we're focusing on them taking out, you know, uranium and diamonds and gold or whatever, but even before that, when they took us out, oh my goodness, man, that was like the death blow to the growth and development of Africa, because it should be understood that they took young people, okay, and what they left behind was mostly the old people, and as a result, our continent has been suffering ever since. And then those of us in the diaspora have had to face our own suffering. But again, just imagine France literally can boast, and this is one of the statistics, they can boast that 1 out of every 3 light bulbs in France are lit by uranium coming out of Niger. Imagine, while 90% of the people of Niger don't even have electricity. Just think, I just want us to think today. According to the World Bank, half the people, or at least 40% of the population in Niger, live in extreme poverty. Extreme, not just poverty, but extreme poverty. According to one statistic that I read, those persons living in extreme poverty, they live on less than $2 a day. Less than $2 a day, okay? France's economic control over Niger is maintained by the use of the CFA franc. This is a particular currency that France has used to keep its control over Niger. And so the CFA franc, this is a currency where the C in CFA, the C in the CFA originally stood for colonial. That's how blatant it was, okay? But the modern social engineers have decided that it's no longer politically correct to keep that colonial on the CFA. And so they changed it to another word. I'm not even sure what the other word is, but they've changed it. But originally, CFA, that C was colonial. And then obviously the other two letters went on to describe that it was, some type of, I think it was colonial African franc, or franc Afrique, or franc Africa. This is what it stood for. You see, dear family, the use of the CFA constitutes daylight robbery of Niger or Niger. And this is the reality of what's been going on. The CFA franc is connected to the euro, okay? It's connected to the euro, the European currency. And what this means is that Niger and these other African countries have no monetary sovereignty. The monetary policy of all these African nations is dictated by the European Central Bank. I mean, I want to understand the African countries are controlled and dictated to by the European Central Bank. They don't control their own economic resources. Half of all the foreign exchange reserves in central banks in countries like Niger, Mali, and Burkina Faso have to hold half of their reserve currencies in the French treasury. Half of them is in the French treasury, meaning that they have no control or ownership of the money generated in their own countries. So now you wonder why Mali and Burkina Faso and now Niger or Niger, now they've decided, look, enough is enough. Yeah. Then when it comes to the overabundance of natural resources in the West African region, it's hard to believe, but things are even worse, okay? What we've said so far is bad enough, but they're even worse, dear family, than what we have thus far pointed out. None of the countries in Africa are actually poor, okay? Let's just be clear about that. None of the countries in Africa are inherently poor. They are not. And in particular, this part of West Africa, where much of the world's attention is currently focused, is extremely rich in natural resources. Go ahead. Go ahead.
So this is, I'm just quoting from Message to the Black Man, and the title is Help Self Before Helping Others. Many of my people, the so-called Negroes, say we should help the nations of Africa, which are awakening. This has been said as if we owned America. We are so foolish. What part of America do you have that you can offer toward helping Africa? Who is independent? The nations of Africa or we? The best act would be to request the independent governments of Africa and Asia to help us. We are the ones who need help. We have little or nothing to offer as help to others. We should begin to help at home first.
Beautiful, beautiful. And I hope everybody understands that. That's so powerful, because see, quite often we get things the wrong way around. It's not that our people on the continent are not suffering. Yeah, certainly. I'm telling you why they're suffering. I'm showing you the reality of the systems that have been put in place to keep Africa in the condition that it currently is in, okay, and it's trying to extricate itself from. However, when you look at us in the diaspora, when you look at us here in America or in Britain or in other parts of the Western world, I mean, yeah, you may have your Oprah Winfrey's, a so-called billionaire woman, TV presenter, actress, philanthropists, etc., etc. You may have your Michael Jordans. You may have these footballers who are earning, 75,000 or 100,000 pounds a week, or whatever the case may be. But these are individuals. This is not the collective Black community that has money or has even more importantly, land and infrastructure that we can call our own. We own nothing. In the UK here, we don't have no land. We don't own no part of the country that we can call our own.
No,
Go ahead,
the
sister.
only time we own land in this country is when you die.
There you go.
You have to pay for your land.
6 foot.
Yeah.
6 foot down, maybe, and I don't know how long the grave is, but sufficiently wide and
that's what they say
to take a coffin. That's what you. That's and that's,
you can't benefit from it because you're dead.
That's your piece of land.
That's right.
Okay, they'll let you have that when you are dead. But in reality, dear family, what do we really own? And so therefore, why are we thinking that it's for, I understand that we can encourage our brothers and sisters to rise up and to take the land back on the continent, but certainly we haven't got the wherewithal or the resources to help Africa. Africa is in a much better position once Africa is liberated to actually help us. And part of the help that's required and needed is for our African heads of state, our African leadership, to actually make provisions for us to come back home,
which they are doing now.
Yeah, it's happening. Yeah. It's happening. We didn't voluntarily leave.
No,
we were kidnapped. Okay, we were captured as prisoners of war and taken on a westerly course and destroyed as a human reality. So we want to come home, but our brothers and sisters have got to make those provisions for us to come back home and bring those skills that we've acquired. Leave all the filth that we've also acquired, all of the madness, all of the stuff. We ain't taking that to our mother continent, dear family. The people have been deliberately, I'm talking about the people on the continent now, as it's been done to us, but on the continent, the people have been deliberately and systematically made poor. Okay, right. By the complete rape and robbery by the French and other European governments, backed up by multinational corporations and many of these NGOs, okay, non-governmental organizations who come in our countries masquerading as friends or benefactors, only for us to discover on closer examination, which the Africans are now making closer examinations, that most of our worst problems began with the arrival of many of these NGOs, okay? Niger and Mali are both major producers of gold, dear family. And that gold is coveted by the Europeans and even more so sought after by the French and many in the European Union. The thing that they really are after now is this radioactive metal called uranium, found in abundance in the soil of Niger.
I was just going to say a point that Don said. He said you can buy plots of land in this country. I think he means the UK. Yeah,
of course you can. No, but of course you can. You can, I mean, if you got the money, if you got the resources, but again,
they don't really like to give it to us.
No, but I'm saying even as an individual who purchases a piece of land in this country, which I'm sure there's quite a few Black people who have done that, what does that mean?
Yes.
Where's our collective land?
Yeah.
Where is the
person having?
Come on, where is the place that we can point to, like the Chinese can point to all of the Chinatowns up and down the country?
Yes.
Like Asians, right? Where's the community that we can call our own? Yes. The Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad said it over and over and over again. We gotta have some of this land or some of this earth that we can call our own.
With our own shops, our own hospitals,
our own way of life.
That's right, our own school.
Our own culture.
That's right.
Not literally being forced to live somebody else's reality.
One person living here, then somebody hours away. No, we want our own land. We must have some land of our own.
Absolutely, beloved. And so both France and the European Union rely on 1/5 of their uranium coming from Niger to produce their nuclear energy. This is the level of their reliance. 1/3 of France's electricity comes from nuclear power, which means she uses more nuclear energy for electricity than most so-called developed nations, who mostly still rely on oil-powered facilities to produce their electricity. France is big-time user of nuclear energy. This means that France is literally more desperate for uranium than most other countries. The next two major producers of uranium are Kazakhstan and Russia. Okay, it's important again that when we are looking at what's taking place on the planet today, that we also can see geopolitically the alliances and what's happening, and how the West is becoming more and more angry and desperate when they see the relationships developing now between Russia, China, Africa, and how slowly but surely, in recognition of the historical abuse, we are saying to the West, later for that, later for that, okay? And we are moving away. Dear family, did you want to say something, beloved? Okay. Now, both France and America, dear family, have a massive military presence all across West Africa and all over the African continent. Again, think about it. Just imagine an African nation having a military base here in the UK or in America. I mean, it just wouldn't make any sense.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and again, see, what you've got to understand when we're talking about Black communities now in this country that are viable, that you can actually say, yeah, like you could say, yeah, that's Black town, just like you could say that's Chinatown. Mm-hmm. Okay, understand that from the perspective of the Caucasian who is in power and wants to run things, that would be tantamount to having a military base, a Black military base on what he considers to be his soil. White man's heaven, Black man's hell. See, for us to have our own communities, that would be heavenly.
Oh, it would be wonderful.
Imagine having a Black community that we policed ourselves, that where our women could walk and in safety and feel our children could, you know,
our young girls,
where we set our educational curricula, you know, where we're running things, man.
We're in control of it. We're not answerable to anyone.
Come on, other than our God.
Yes, that's right.
Okay, but for him, that would be an anathema. That would be what?
No way.
that would be, we're out of his jurisdiction and out of his control. That is an African military base from his perspective. But that then explains to you why he's got all of these military bases on African soil and in other people's countries. Why? Because it's to eavesdrop, it's to control, it's to threaten, it's to make sure that in the event that something should happen, he is literally behind enemy lines in terms of what the damage that he could wreak in that nation, because he's already militarily based there. Go ahead, sis.
I was going to say, that brother who had to fight, beat up those devils, they don't even want us telling them what to do, let alone have our own land, let alone have military bases.
You're talking about that incident, yes, the viral video that's going to...
The brother was telling him where to go, you know,
in terms of the boats, yes.
But they just cannot have us tell them anything.
Anything.
You're not allowed as a Black person to open your mouth to them. They don't like it.
Dear family, I want you to again understand that You may not know this, you may not like to hear it, because you also suffer from this thing, you know, oh, he's a Muslim, he was an Arab and all this and whatever. We really got to get, we better learn to start discerning who is our friend and who's our enemy. Absolutely, there are many Arabs, and I wrangle with them all the time. Those of you who see us in Hyde Park having to deal with the racism, the rank hypocrisy that comes from some of these people. But I'm saying, dear family, Muammar Gaddafi was a tremendous friend and brother and helper of Africa and African people, Black Africans. And I say that he had the maximum love, honor, and respect for us as a people and for that continent. But when we allowed, listen to my language, when we allowed the West, France, England, America, NATO, to go into that country and destroy it and to murder in cold blood the duly elected sovereign leader of that nation, Muammar Gaddafi, we committed a great sin. And we opened the gates of hell, because under Obama, Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton, they then proceeded, dear family, to set up something. They imposed something on the African continent that they call AFRICOM, okay, which is a US African military command on the continent of Africa. Before, when Gaddafi was there, they could never do it. He would never allow them to come in and set up something like that. But once they were able to get rid of Gaddafi, here comes AFRICOM. And this AFRICOM has special operational forces and other conventional military forces in more than half of the countries on the African continent. Just think about that, man. Out of 54, 55 countries, they've got AFRICOM in more than half of those countries, dotted all the way around the African continent. I believe at the last count, there were 55 countries on the African continent. In Niger alone, or Niger alone, America has 1,000 troops stationed there. That's the number that we've been given, but chances are they've got a lot more. Okay, but they've got, according to the numbers that we've been given, 1,000 military personnel in Niger. Okay, France has got 1,500 military personnel stationed in Niger. The new military government in Niger has cut ties with both France and America and has told both of them to take their military personnel and get out. Okay, get out. This is what's happening now. All right. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just reading, I'm reading from Fall of America by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And I'll just read this part. It says, "We have made America one of the richest and strongest people on earth. Her mighty navy is commanding the high seas with undersea craft, crawling on the bottom of the ocean, carrying deadly weapons to surface and pour out on towns and cities of other than America, and with listening devices set up throughout the earth, on land, sea, and in the air, to listen to see what people are saying about her and planning against her. Knowing she is guilty and deserving of death, and that she should be taken and destroyed. She has prepared to put up a mighty battle, but Allah too has prepared, and He is the best preparer. Knowing their thoughts before they were ever made, they have not the slightest chance today against the power of Allah that is working against them, even through the forces of nature. The white race has been disgracing the entire Black nation of the earth. Africa is suffering under the same wicked power of the white race and having an awful time trying to rid herself of such a demon. She will do so, and soon. And that is what Africa is.
That is what's happening, dear family. The African people, the African continent is trying to rid itself
That's right.
of this great hindrance to its growth and development, i.e. America, France, and these other European nations. Dear brothers and sisters, you know, despite the fact that we've all, or some of us, I know, witnessed these emergency evacuations of many French, American, and other foreign nationals, mostly civilian Europeans, both America and France currently are refusing to leave the country, okay? And they're stating that they don't recognize the new military government as the legitimate government. And at the same time, they are working on this 14-member block of countries called ECOWAS, which is the Economic Organization of West African States. But listen to the language, Economic Organization of West African States. This is an economic bloc, okay? But now they want ECOWAS now to literally attack Niger on behalf of France and the West in order to reinstate Bazoum, who is the former president, who was a Western puppet or Western lackey doing the bidding of the West in Niger. See, dear family, it's really, really shameful for ECOWAS, these countries led primarily by the president of Nigeria and the Nigerian nation, which is the most populous country in Africa, and probably has got the best resourced military. But even having said that, again, it's important to appreciate that Nigeria, as a country, as a nation, is struggling. It can't afford to get into some kind of war right now, much less to go to war with its neighbor that it shares a border over 1,000 miles long. Why would you do that? Why would you do such a thing? And if you see the mad rush that they have been in to, you know, impose sanctions on their near neighbor and brothers and sisters, because the Nigerians and the Nigerians, they're so much of them a family. There's tremendous interaction between the two nations. They are literally kith of each other's kith and kin, okay? This is the reality of their family. But the African, so many of these African heads of state and African nations are so controlled from the West that no sooner did the military take over the country that the West could order Nigeria and, by definition, ECOWAS to immediately impose sanctions against Niger and immediately begin to threaten, before any kind of diplomacy at all, any discussion, any talk, because this is your brother next door who you should have a conversation with at least. But before any of that could happen, they were imposing sanctions and threatening military action in order to reverse the coup and to put this puppet back into power. No, the military said, no, we're not going to do that, man. We're going to stand firm because there's a change taking place now. And again, it may not be popularly appreciated or known, but you see, dear family, one of the primary excuses for America being in Africa with their military, for France being in Africa with their military, and for these other Europeans being there with their militaries, is that they said that they went there to fight terrorism. And where's this terrorism coming from? The terrorism primarily began when they destroyed Muammar Gaddafi and Libya. And they flooded that area, that country with weapons, and they literally released all of these jihadists, these fanatical so-called Muslims. They're not Muslims, dear family. Okay, they're not Muslims. But these fanatics who were racist in their orientation, hated Africans, okay, and they unleashed them on Libya, and they were killing Black Libyans, slaughtering our people on the big lie that the Western media carried as well. The Western media saying that Muammar Gaddafi had brought in these Blacks from other parts of Africa to fight in his military against NATO and against the Libyan people. Damnable lie. These are Black Libyans fighting to keep their country independent, sovereign, and free, and fighting to expel NATO and these so-called rebels that were being financed and empowered by the West. But once they destroyed Muammar Gaddafi and Libya as a reality in terms of a unified, cohesive country, and created all of these warlords and factions in that country, is now literally a basket case in terms of what it represents, in terms of where it was under Muammar Gaddafi, which is the richest country in Africa, which was the most stable. I mean, no debt. The people, all of the people of that country earning money on a monthly basis from the oil money that came in. I mean, there's so much more. I mean, free housing, you know, free education, free medical care, and we could go on and on. But the world was poisoned against Muammar Gaddafi by the Western media, by the Western press, who are damnable liars. They specialize in telling lies. And then what they did was to unleash these so-called jihadists. And then they went now into sub-Saharan Africa. They've gone into the interior of many of the nations. This is where these connections with Al-Qaeda and all of these other terrorist organizations, which, again, when you study the history of them, most of them have been formed by the Western powers. Okay, they've been financed by the West. They've been armed by the West. And now they are in these nations. They're in Nigeria, calling themselves Boko Haram. Okay, kidnapping girls and torturing people and killing soldiers and doing all manner of things. Now, the Nigerian military, they're not coping very well with dealing with Boko Haram. How are they going to muster a military force now to go and deal with Niger or Niger? How are they going to do that? If they can't deal with these terrorists, so-called terrorists, and they're terrorizing Nigeria, parts of the countryside and whatever. And, you know, I mean, it's so much, dear family. I could really go quite deep into this in terms of really what's going on out there. But suffice to say this, you see, ECOWAS is being manipulated, and they're allowing themselves to be manipulated. Praise be to Allah. Thank God that deadline that they initially set came and went, and now there seems to be more talking going on, and, you know, more diplomacy now, because I'm sure that there are some sensible people over there in some of these other nations that recognize and realize that they ought not to be going down this road of declaring war on their own kith and kin, on their brothers and sisters on the continent, at the behest of their former colonizers and tyrannical oppressors, okay? But who knows what's going to happen. But suffice to say that the Nigerians, the people from Mali, the people from Burkina Faso, the leadership and the people, they have come to the realization that these Western countries who have got their militaries there, supposed to be helping to fight terrorism, it would appear that rather than fighting terrorism, they're there to actually enable the terrorists. Because, I mean, one scenario that I learned was on occasions when some of these countries have identified terrorist cells in their hideouts in the countryside, and they've decided that they wanted to go in and literally wipe these people out who are creating so much destabilization in the region, that when they determined to go in and take care of them, and they would inform the French military that are stationed in their countries what they're about to do, the French military say, no, you can't do it, don't go in. They would stop them from actually going and taking care of these terrorists, demonstrating again that they were there not to eliminate terrorism, but to enable terrorism in order to keep the fear and the confusion and the madness. Because I don't know if you've heard the terminology, ruling through chaos, okay? And while the people are preoccupied fighting so-called terrorism, the oil, the uranium, the diamonds, the gold, they keep leaving the country and going to Europe for next to nothing. And the countries there continue and remain underdeveloped and poor. This is what's been going on. And this is what many of these African nations have now come to the realization of, and what they're determined to change their family. Sister, I want you to go into another one of the readings from the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Is it Fall of America?
Yes.
Yeah, don't forget, family, make sure that you get, a copy of Fall of America. Make sure you get a copy of Message to the Black Man. Make sure you get a copy of How to Eat to Live, okay? Because
make sure you tune into Final Call Radio.
Final Call Radio. 24/7. Yes.
Okay, so this is chapter 42, Plagued by God, America is Doomed. It is the desire of the white race to continue to hold power and authority over Black Africa, whether it is in Rhodesia or elsewhere. They will just have to give it up. England, Germany, Italy, and France, especially England, France and skeleton Germany, seem to be the diehards. The white men in Rhodesia would be acting wisely if they would realize that one day, sooner or later, they must pack up and leave.
And if you could just pause there momentarily, Sister Claudia, you see when the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad wrote this, see, it was still Rhodesia.
Yes.
And if you remember, the white man who was down there governing, called Ian Smith, how he boasted that there would be no Black rule in that country for 1,000 years. But what happened? The Robert Mugabe came to power, okay? And the white man had to leave. He had to give it up. He hasn't fully left. He's still there, okay? But the point is that Black majority rule came about. And it's no longer Rhodesia, it's now Zimbabwe. And so this change has been incremental on the continent, and it continues, and it's beginning to move at a pace. Go ahead, sister.
Wherefore, I quote the Bible prophecy concerning the separation of nations. Again, today, as it was before, every man must go to his own. This is the clearest and most direct justice that God and man could agree upon. The white man cannot live in luxury unless he has the Black man and his place of possession in subjection to his will. There goes the.
Remember what we were saying?
Yes, the minister's.
White man's heaven
is a black
man's hell. Just read that part again, please, from the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad.
The white man cannot live in luxury unless he has the black man and his place of possession in subjection to his will.
There you go.
But as I repeatedly say in this paper and in all my writings, you cannot make God and his prophets liars, nor can we reverse the time of their prediction in which these things would take place. So the time has come. This is nothing but justice, that we have possession of what is our own. The white man is conscious of the fact that he deceived the black man of the knowledge of the black man and his possessions, but that particularly authority was given divinely, temporarily, but by the same time, divinity, it is now being taken from the white race. The white race is facing doom because she will not act according to justice and righteousness, which was not by nature put in her. But this is known, and her race is frightened concerning her future. And that's what we're living in now.
That's right. That's the time period in which we're living, dear family. And you know, they have brought this on themselves. This is not because God is wicked. This is not because we're wicked. This is something that they refuse to do the right thing. They've been given ample opportunities to change from their wicked ways, but they continue to maintain that status quo, that oppressive, narcissistic, territorial, there's another word I want to use, sociopathic mentality, that psychopathic mentality, and there's no change in them.
Right.
And so this is why we see what's taking place now. So again, both France and America have military bases in Niger. And in the case of America, she spent $110 million on the largest drone base ever built by the United States Air Force. And it is strategically located right there in Niger. See, I just want you to think, when you hear all the noise that they're making about what has recently taken place in Niger, understand what they mean when they talk about America and French interests, okay? America spends between $20 and $30 million a year just to maintain that particular airbase in Niger and to control the whole of that region of Africa using drones, okay? Victoria Nuland, I don't know how many of you have heard of this woman. She was one of the main architects of the coup in Ukraine in 2014. And that coup overthrew the democratically elected president of Ukraine at the time before installing a new puppet government friendly to Washington, London, the European Union of Nations, and of course, NATO, the military alliance being used to fight a proxy war against Russia using Ukraine as the proxy. Victoria Nuland, who normally loves coups, she loves coups, okay? And coups are great as long as they've been orchestrated from the West, okay, against African countries and South American countries and countries in the Indian subcontinent and so on and so forth, that the coups are wonderful as long as they are the architects of them and they are doing it in the interest of the West. But when the coups are in line with America, they're very happy. And when they align with Western foreign policy, it's wonderful, okay? But she went to Niger, she went to Niger. I can't make up my mind whether to say Niger or Niger, so that's why I often say it twice and I say both. But She went to Niger to persuade the so-called coup leaders to give up their coup and return to the status quo. She was denied an audience with the former president, who remains under house arrest. Okay, and recently I've heard that they're suggesting that they may even try him for high treason based on the fact that it was under him that all of these military bases were established in Niger, and how he is one of the main ones who has been working to really undermine any kind of development of that nation on behalf of the West. Okay, she was denied an audience with him, and she was also disallowed from meeting with the leaders of the new government, much to her displeasure. Because again, you got to understand white privilege. It's not just about your white neighbor who, you know, thinks that they should park in your parking space, the Karens. It's not just about them. It's also about these so-called world leaders and these top people in government and in the military. They all suffer from the disease of white privilege, where they think all they got to do is just fly in, threaten the black man in his own country, in his own presidential palace or whatever, in his own house, and the black man will just bow down. And especially if it's a white woman flying in as well. Ooh, the white woman better not upset her. So, you know, we're gonna capitulate. No, no, no. Consequences, dear family, have been threatened by ECOWAS on behalf of the West. Okay, and you know, this is a shame, and my prayer is that the ECOWAS nations will actually return to sanity and realize that this change that is happening in Niger and has happened in Mali and Burkina Faso, and the Algerian nation has stated that they will not stand by and tolerate any kind of military offensive against Niger. And according to Mali and Burkina Faso, the leadership there have stated categorically, in no uncertain terms, that any attack against Niger will be considered by them a declaration of war. So here you've got the African countries now coming together, standing in solidarity to defend their brother against aggression from any external force. This is what should have happened, by the way, in Libya at that time. And so this is where we are, family. We are talking about war. We're talking about what is about to go down on the African continent, what's already began in, you know, all over the Western world, in Ukraine, and these things will spread. I'm a bit nervous because I want to go to something, but let me see if we can go to it without any issues here. Wonderful. Imagination, promoting and advertising goods and services for the benefit of our community. Please take note, dear family, and support to the best of your ability. Visit www.natureshairproducts.co.uk and try the beard oil, specially formulated hair butters, and so much more from Nature's Hair Products. Also, beloved family, what's that?
No, the cake.
Oh, yes. I had some sorrel. Yes. Well, I didn't even see when you took some, actually, but we had some wonderful, wonderful sorrel cake yesterday. That's the red velvet.
Yes.
Yeah, that's
delicious.
JJ Sorrel. Visit www.jjsorrel.com or at JJ_Love That's on Instagram. And also you can email info@jjsorrel.com.
No, I was going to say her cakes are so light.
Yes,
and
beautiful.
They just melt in your mouth. Yes. Beautiful taste, lovely.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
log up, order a cake if you're over here in the UK.
Yes. And also you can directly call to make inquiries about, cupcakes and sorrel drinks. And the sorrel drinks, I can only compare it to, like, these fine wine drinkers when they talk about the notes and the tones and the flavor. The sorrel is it's something to behold. It's something to taste,
and it's just right. It's not too strong. I don't like sorrels that, but no,
I know. But I'm one of those who likes the strong ginger. But I also like the delicacy and the beauty of JJ sorrel as well. But I must admit, I am one of those. I'm one of those burnt sorrel men as well. I do like my sorrel as well, and another version of sorrel that's really hot and spicy. But you can call 07947 253 341 to make your order. That's 07947 253 341 and order something from JJ Sorrel. Also, dear family, visit www.p2bb.uk or London Study Group 19.org and order your Proud to be Black t-shirts, caps, and mugs, and say it like you mean it, P2BB. Also, just to let you know, we will be at the Carnival this year, and we will have the Proud to be Black merchandise with us. And so you can look out for us and pick up something from us on the day. Closer to the time, next week, I might try and give you a bit of a location where you can locate us, because of course, with over 1 million people on the streets of West London, in that Notting Hill area, it's very difficult sometimes to move, to get from one spot to another. And again, that's also by design. The police are becoming more and more, every year it's more and more draconian in terms of the restrictions that they put in place for the people to be able to make their way around the carnival. It's like they've corralled the people like they're animals, and it's quite barbaric actually, and shameful the way they've got control of this, that really began as a protest against the murder of Black people in that area. And now corporate Britain have got it firmly in their grip. They've taken it over. And it's a real shame that as Black people, we don't tend to hold on to the things that belong to us. And ultimately, we allow other people to take control of it. But this is the pattern of behavior. This has always been the way things have been in this country. And with Carnival, it's more of the same. Nothing has really changed. But we will be down there trying to impart a message to those of our people who care to listen. And again, as I said, sharing some of the Proud to be Black merchandise, among other things. Our young sister, Katalea Yvonne, is representing Jamaica and the Caribbean at the Miss Caribbean UK Beauty Pageant on Saturday, the 28th of October, 2023. This is how you can vote for our sister. I'll tell you that she is the daughter of one of our regular listeners, one of our regular viewers, one of our regular attendees at the Image a Nation show. And so you can vote for her by going to the at Miss Caribbean UK, and you can go, that's Instagram and also Facebook. You can use hashtag vote for the number 4 Katalea, or hashtag vote for Leah. All right, family, Sister Claudia.
No, so this is from our sister Katalea. She writes, "Dear all, I am proudly representing Jamaica and the Caribbean at the Miss Caribbean UK Beauty Pageant. As a Miss Caribbean UK 2023 finalist, I will mainstream my campaign and in speech marks, a better world, to provide marginalized communities and children with better opportunities by providing improved educational facilities, living resources, and financial assistance. If you would like to create a better world by helping me raise awareness for my causes, vote for me as the people's champion.
Beautiful. Thank you.
And she's such an intelligent sister.
Yeah, that's beautiful, sister. So yeah, let's rally behind our sister Catalea, Yvonne, and go and vote. Go to @Miss Caribbean UK on Instagram and Facebook. Use hashtag vote for #4 Catalea or hashtag vote for Leia. All right, family.
Can I just go back again? So our sister JJ, for her sorrels and her cake, she is actually taking orders online at www.jjsorrel.com.
Okay, do that one more time.
So for online orders, you can go to www.jjsorrel.com.
Wonderful. Also, dear family, visit the tribe. Okay, pick up some traditional garments, and you can go to www.tribenation2019.com and wear it in style. Family, one more time, visit www.natureshairproducts.co.uk and try the moisturizing hair and scalp oil, as well as beard oil and other natural hair products. Okay, I cannot emphasize it enough how important it is to put natural products on our skin and on our hair, and to really eliminate these chemicals which are doing us such tremendous harm. And also, don't forget Nia's bean pies. Visit Instagram. Yeah, the bean pie is a delicacy in the nation of Islam. It keeps us strong. It keeps us young. It protects us from literally nuclear fallout. These beans are awesome. The navy bean or haricot bean, this is the staple of the members of the Nation of Islam. So visit Instagram at Nia's_bean_pies or call 07956127975. It is a sweet that's healthy all at the same time. Don't forget, visit 07956127975 and pick up a bean pie for yourself, dear family. And so let us remember, don't forget, dear brothers and sisters, to visit our YouTube channel, the Nation of Islam London Study Group New, and please like, share, and subscribe. When we look at the number of people who visit and who take in the show, we see that the equivalency of those who actually like and share and subscribe is a little bit lacking. And so we do encourage you to like, share, and subscribe to the show. And also, for those of you who are able to make a donation, please click the donation button to help us to continue in our endeavors. Dear brothers and sisters, thank you so much for being with us this evening. I want you to, go ahead,
I've got
sister.
one more point on what you're saying.
Yeah.
This is for us in Europe,
which
the Honourable Minister Louis Farrakhan has been warning us for years to get out of Europe. And this book, The Fall of America, was written over 50 years ago. And this is what the Honourable Elijah Muhammad says: the white man must return to Europe. and concentrate on that continent for his future, or else concentrate on his death instead of his life. For they can no longer rule the black man. The black man now knows where his home is, and he is now rising up to take possession of that which is his. And as we said 2 weeks ago, once that white man starts coming back here, where we are, we need to leave.
Yes, and I mean, it really cannot be emphasized enough, dear family. Those of you who got family in the Caribbean, you got family on the continent of Africa, get in touch with your family, talk to your family, rekindle your family relations, because we may, not may, in truth, we're going to have to get out of here sometime soon, okay? We're going to have to, because the minister said Europe will become a theater of war. And the Final Call newspaper front page said Europe will become a graveyard. Okay, and I'm sure that was also quoting the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And so let us not tempt fate. Let us recognize and understand that, we have alternatives. We have options. We have places that we can go. And as Sister Claudia rightly said a little bit earlier, we've been blessed to visit the continent on a number of occasions, and not all of the countries, of course, just a few places, but and there's so many other places that we want to go. But make no mistake about it, Africa represents the future. Africa is absolutely beautiful, and the potential, for Africa. And I'm, forgive me, I'm not decrying the Caribbean. That's where I was born. I was born on the island of Jamaica. Go ahead.
Well, somebody has asked if you could come to Jamaica.
Yes.
On YouTube.
Yeah, I would love to. That's my island. That's where I was born, and I love Jamaica. And if it be the will of God, I want to visit again very soon. And those of you who want me to come to different countries, just send the invitation, man, and help us get out there so that we can come. I saw something the other day online, and it was so beautiful. This wonderful brother, trying to think what country he was out of. But anyway, he came up with a concept, and the concept was called Giants of Africa. Giants of Africa. And it was a festival, and I think it was going around. But I was thinking about my edutainment, the things that I've been doing in this country for so many years, up and down the country, basically mixing education with entertainment. We call it edutainment. We got the term from KRS-One, our great conscious rapper. KRS-One coined the phrase edutainment. And we have been doing edutainment in the UK for in excess of 25 years, 30 years. And it was very, very successful. The people greatly appreciated and enjoyed themselves when they would come out to the theaters and the different venues in which we would go and perform. And, the thought came into my mind, man, that I would really love to go to Africa and do an African tour and call it Edutainment African Giants. I just love that term, really, to go and remind our people that they are indeed giants, that Africa itself is a giant, that the people are giants, and just to use edutainment as a vehicle to get that message to our people. So those of you who are in positions where you've got the finances and you would want to finance such a tour like this, man, let your little brother Leo Muhammad is ready and he's up for it. And so let's make it happen. Let's see if we can now start to bridge these gaps and, really become a global family, which is what we are, and a nation without borders, so that I'm saying to the African leaders, you got to get rid of these borders, get rid of these lines of demarcation that were drawn by our open enemy, by these enslavers and these colonizers. Let's recognize our brothers and sisters that for what we are, which is brothers and sisters, and stop this nonsense where Africans need a visa to go from one African country to another. We're just playing right into the enemy's hands who have designed these systems. I heard one of our brothers on the continent, Julius Malema, talking about how these Europeans have got this free access to all European nations. They can travel among themselves, not needing any of these restrictions.
You go driver license. To
absolutely. Well, yeah. What Sister Claudia is saying is that some of these Americans, white Americans, and I don't know if it's the same for Europeans, but they can literally go into many of our countries just by having their driver's license. Which is ridiculous. While we got all of these draconian measures and systems imposed on us as African family members, stopping us from being able to visit. They make it so expensive for us to travel from Europe to the Caribbean, by design, to prevent us from uniting with our family members and having that beautiful, cohesive family. And we've got to break these chains. We've got to smash these systems that keep us divided. And once again, we've got to come back together. And so, dear family, in our closing remarks, I want to say that it is clear that many of these West African countries have reached a point now where they, like Niger and the other countries who have recently militarily removed their governments, who were happy, these governments that were happy to do the bidding of the West and to work to the detriment of their own people, because this is what they've been doing. This is why Africa is in the condition that it's in, because we've had so-called leaders who were prepared to detrimentally hurt Africans on the ground while boosting Europe and Europeans. It would appear, dear family, that these newly installed military governments desire to bring about significant change for the benefit of the masses of our people on the continent. This is really something very, very beautiful. This is what I've been praying for so long, for so many years, to see this type of change taking place. Make no mistake about it, the enemy will not go quietly, and he will desire to see a lot of blood spilt before this process is completed. But I believe that the spirit of this new cadre of leadership, man, is on another level. And I pray that Allah will bless them to have the fortitude, the testicular fortitude to see this process through to its logical conclusion.
It will, because it's in the scripture.
It's in the scripture, that's right. It's been predicted. A major and significant part of what is happening today, dear family, is all about the money. Somebody once said, follow the money. If you want to know why, so much madness is in our lives, you got to see who benefits, who profits from all of these problems that beset our great continent and cause so many of us to be unfulfilled. It is because the money is going in a particular direction. And if you follow the money, you'll see where, for instance, something in the financial press called the S&P Global Commodities Insight, which is a marketing intelligence firm, published a report in which they quoted a former State Department official who said, quote, "Our biggest concern is that in Mali and Burkina Faso, the nationalist governments have nationalized the gold mining." That's their biggest concern. You see, when these African leaders now take over and claim back the diamond, claim back the gold, claim back the oil, claim back the uranium, nationalize these, make these belong to the people on the ground. That's their major concern, because, see, most of this has been about profits. It's been about money. It's been about the rape of these resources from the continent. Dear family, this is because historically it has been foreign companies that have owned and controlled gold mining and oil exploration and all industrial mines and mineral extractions. It's been foreigners. De Beers, the diamond merchants in South Africa and other parts, they're not us, okay? And what they pay these governments, these lackey governments, is peanuts, because, you know, you give peanuts to monkeys. Okay, this is how they see these people that they've been able to buy, that are in their pay. All right, they don't see them as black men. They don't see them as strong leaders. These are chimpanzees as far as they're concerned. And it's such a shame to see our people would be willing to accept such a designation, such a title as a chimp or a monkey, to be at the behest of these people who are just using them to destroy their own people and their own nations. Dear family, now the mining is being run and controlled by the state for the benefit of the state and the benefit of the people, which is how it should be. This is what these leaders are now doing. This is what these so-called coups are all about, taking back control of African resources for African people. The reports coming out of Niger, Mali, and Burkina Faso is that the new governments have blocked exports of uranium and gold from going to the West. Wow. That means that you got some people now squirming in the West, and they're itching for war, military action to reverse that blockage, where now they can't get what they've been so used to getting, almost free of charge. Okay, now that these things have been cut off, there's a lot of angry Western media people and angry politicians and angry military who desire to reverse that trend. This is a complete anathema to the West. Anathema is like the worst thing. It's like it's hated, it's disgusting, it's from their perspective, from their point of view, going back again to white man's heaven, black man's hell. Black man's heaven, white man's hell. That's how it works. We're on opposite pages. We're at opposite poles, okay? And they've become used to a particular norm. And today, what is happening is diametrically opposed, and it's a diametrically opposed set of circumstances when it comes to dealing with Africa and Africans. France, dear family, forced its former colonies to sign that document called the Pact for the Continuation of Colonization. And today, they've torn up these African countries, and leaders are tearing up these wicked treaties, these wicked pacts that the former leaders, former lackeys signed to really keep Africa and Africans in perpetual servitude and bondage. And so, family, this is where we are. This is what's unfolding on our planet. We are at war. We should adopt a war mentality. We should have a war strategy. In other words, we should become very, very militant in the way in which we conduct and carry ourselves. We should have plans. We should have policies and procedures by which we conduct ourselves as a people. We should not be lazy. We should not be flippant. We should not be casual in the way in which we run our lives, conduct ourselves, because these types of attitudes will cause us to become casualties of the war. And so I pray that something that we've said this evening has been of benefit, that there's been some clarity around what's going on, and, you know, that what has been shared has been, you know, good, that we can see more clearly where we fit. Because, you know, one of the problems that we have in this life is when we can't see where we fit in the scheme of things, you see. But I heard the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan say that if we took a picture today of us, where we are right now, whatever, and in 6 months' time, or in a year's time, or even 20 years' time, we were blessed to look back at that picture, the first person we would look for in the picture is ourselves. And that's not because of vanity. That's not because, oh, we're selfish. That's because self is really important. Self first before anyone or anything else. That's why on the airplane, the instruction is if there's a problem and the oxygen mask drop down, you don't put it on your child first. You don't put it on the passenger, the person sitting next to you first. You put it on yourself first, so that you're actually in a position to help other people. And so we have to learn this as Africans, as Black people. We have to learn that principle of our own self-interest, our own self-determination. Everyone else on the planet has it except for us. We're the only ones who put other people ahead of our own selves. That must stop. That must change. And we must unite, and we must be willing to fight, bleed, and die for one another, dear brothers and sisters. We've got to understand, man, that only when our enemy knows, as Mali and Burkina Faso have declared, if you attack Niger, we will consider it a declaration of war against us. And Algeria have said words to the same effect, that if you attack, then we will not stand by and allow that to happen. And this is the mentality that we should have: one for all and all for one. This phrase was coined by a Black man, Alexander Dumas, the author of the Three Musketeers. Most Black people would probably think it was a white man. No, this was a Black man. One for all and all for one. This is the spirit and the mentality that you and I must have today. And when the enemy knows that we love each other like that, and that we're willing to fight, bleed, and die for one another, man, that enemy, who is naturally a coward, by the way, he'll back up off of us. But as long as he can implement that system of divide and rule, divide and conquer, where he knows that we won't turn around and defend our brother, defend our sister, fight for our brother, fight for our sister, as long as he knows that he can come in between family members and create havoc and mayhem, he'll be doing that 24 hours, 7 days a week, because that's been his mode of operation from the time he was given that time to rule. His time to rule is up. It's finished, brothers and sisters. The Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad said that his time to rule has been up since 1914. 1914. This man is living on borrowed time. It's now time for you and I to make a change. Can you read any of
No,
the?
I just want to apologize to our Zoom family because I don't have my laptop today, so I can't read the messages.
Hold on a minute. Let's have a look and see if we can. Let's have a look. The Zoom. Can we see any of these? Can we read any of these messages?
They're closer to you.
Hmm?
They're closer to you.
Let's have a look.
But I've got someone just to thank our YouTube family for tuning in and to apologize because last week our Zoom crashed, so that we do have a new Zoom ID and passcode, but we'll put that on our YouTube channel. And those who are on Zoom, obviously you have it because you're tuned in, but I think it was Rizzi. Hold on. We couldn't get into the Zoom. Oh, Rizzi. Yes, yeah, so we'll post that information on YouTube just to say thank you to our family in Ohio, Alabama, Ealing, Battersea.
Yeah. Is that William Powell II watching from Ohio? You got L. Vincent 5 watching here from Alabama. Beautiful, man.
Yes.
Clover Dragon. Good evening, guys. Looking very trim and slim. Of course, the legendary DJ Mr. P.
Absolutely.
Assalamu alaikum, Leo and Claudia. Love. And Black Mary says, greetings. Don Dread from Battersea's in the house. My last school was in Battersea. Not a great experience. We got Ealing in the house. And yeah, Rizzi is asking, how do I join on Zoom?
But we'll put those
We're going
details.
to give that information,
YouTube.
Yeah, on the YouTube, so that brothers
just
and
click
sisters.
on to Imagination.
Imagination and the information will be there. Yeah.
Or London Study Group.
Okay.
And somebody wanted to know how to fast, and they just need to buy the book, How to Eat to Live. Yeah. Which, depending if you're in America or the Caribbean, it's best to get it from noi.org. That is noi.org, and click on the store button. Or if you're near Europe, you can order the book from London Study Group 19.org. That's London Study Group 19.org. And Black Mary says, look what's happening in Hawaii. That's right. And yeah, I think we should have a look at that. Just have a look at Hawaii, because according to some of the reports I've read, they're saying that the fires are very, very suspicious. There's some very suspicious activity about the devastation that's taking place in Hawaii. Go ahead, sister. No, finished. Okay, so Clover Dragon says, I will never forget that image of all the African presidents crammed into that coach. That's right. And the European presidents were in chauffeur-driven Mercs with guards flanking all sides. Absolutely, my dear brother. That's a very, very important point, because, you know, but this is the nonsense that we put up with just to be in the good books of these Europeans. We will subject ourselves to that kind of humiliation as a head of state. It's unacceptable, and we have to stop behaving like this, because we've got to stop being Negroes and actually become a black man and a black woman. Exactly. The gods. That's right. The children of the Most High God that we were born to be. Forgive me, family, I'm looking away because I'm just looking at some of the messages, just trying to see if there's anything else I should touch base on. Okay, well, dear family, thank you so much. What does this one say? Jojo is, it says, I agree with everything Farrakhan preaches, but I struggle to convince myself it makes sense, because he claims God's going to destroy America soon, but him and NOI don't move to Nigeria, etc., and set up.
Well, you know,
brothers and sisters.
you know, we got
brothers and sisters that will be going back to Nigeria.
Yeah, a lot of people are, we're moving, brother. There's a lot going on. And, you know, when you are the righteous, when you're part of God's family, we got protection, man. Believe me, brother, we're not about to be destroyed with America. Some of us who don't understand may think that, but no, we got protection. In our teachings, we got a way out.
That's right.
And you know, maybe one of these days we'll talk to you a bit more about some of those things as well.
There is definitely a way out for us.
Yeah.
If we follow God's law.
This says, somebody says, my top videos, my favorite divine couple looking crystal clear on the Zoom today. All praise is due to Allah. Thank you, thank you, thank you for that. That's wonderful. And so, dear family, we thank you. Really, really appreciate you. Beverly X, thank you. She says peace and love.
Brother Floyd, thank you.
Yeah, Ibrahima Kale, thank you so, Brother Leo, for your great teachings and support for the entire Black people. Yeah, beautiful. Thank you so much. Clover Dragons. Yeah, Clover Dragon says, I had no idea the author of the Three Musketeers was Black. See, but that's the beauty of us sharing information with one another, because, I mean, you'd be surprised just how many of these great ones, you know, Beethoven and people like this. I mean, you know, they called him the Moor. They would mock him and call him swarthy and all kinds of, because he was also a Black man, you know. But there's so many of these people that we have been misguided into thinking. I mean, just, you know,
on another level.
Another level. The lies know no bounds.
Yeah.
So, dear family, thank you. May Almighty God Allah bless you and your families, and we look forward to seeing you again, same time, same place next week on the Imagination Show. Thank you. May Allah bless you. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam. Thank you.
Okay, so family, we are finished. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon.